What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking about my predictions for Clash at the Castle, Scotland. This PLE has a lot of intriguing matchups, a lot of titles on the line, and a lot of really interesting storyline threads that are kind of interweaving, connecting with each other. So let's dive into my predictions. So first up, I want to talk about Cody Rhodes versus AJ Styles in an I Quit match for the undisputed WWE Championship. After recreating and putting his own spin on that retirement angle that Mark Henry first did 11 years ago, AJ Styles is now getting another shot, another opportunity at the WWE Championship against Cody Rhodes. This being an I Quit match, I think makes for a really interesting, intriguing matchup, but still one that Cody wins pretty easily. It's just like the days of I Quit matches with John Cena, where you knew John Cena wasn't going to quit, and Cody is the same kind of guy. He is the new John Cena of today, and I just don't see him quitting. And this is a nice way to kind of write off AJ Styles if he were to actually retire after this match. Now that kind of begs the question, is AJ Styles retiring? This forbidden door, if you will, and I really don't like that term, but for lack of a better term, the forbidden door between TNA and WWE has been opened. I know right now it's more of TNA and NXT. However, CM Punk was at NXT Battleground and he actually addressed TNA. So could we see some sort of arrangement where AJ Styles, he quits WWE and then goes over to TNA and starts wrestling people like Moose for the TNA World Championship? I personally would love it. AJ Styles is one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, and I would like to see him kind of recapture that magic one more time. It won't be like TNA of old. However, it's exciting that the brand is back as we remember it from the mid and early 2000s, and I really think that AJ Styles going there, winning the world title one last time before he does hang them up for real would be a really great way to send him off. And I hope we get to see him mix it up with some of those current TNA stars. Now, I think after AJ Styles, the next logical move for Cody is Randy Orton. I do think we're going to see Randy versus Cody for the WWE Championship at SummerSlam, especially because as of today, it was announced that The Rock injured himself filming one of the movies that he's currently filming. So he's going to go get an MRI. Hopefully nothing's too serious, but I don't think we're going to see Rock and Cody at SummerSlam. I think we're saving that for WrestleMania. So all that being said, I've got Cody taking this one. And AJ, if this really is it, if this is the end of the road for you, I want to say thank you. Thank you for all that you've given to the business, all that you've given us as fans. Wendy, thank you for supporting AJ. There's a lot of stories out there about how she really committed to just supporting him and loving on him as his wife, as his partner in life. And really, this is a success story of those two people who decided to do life together and bless us with one of the greatest wrestlers in the history of the business. So AJ, if this is it, thank you. Next up, we're going to talk about Bayley defending her WWE Women's Championship against Piper Niven. Now, this is probably the easiest match to predict. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, you look at who's in the match, it's Bayley and Piper Niven, but Nia Jax is waiting in the wings to invoke her championship match at SummerSlam, and that's obviously going to be Bayley versus Nia Jax. Now, look, I love that Piper Niven is getting a mini push right now because she is very talented, and she had to endure the gimmick that was known as Dewdrop, which was awful. Thank you so much, Triple H, for stripping that away from her about a year and a half ago. It was a much-needed change, and we get to see the personality of Piper Niven having come out over the last year and a half, especially when partnering with Chelsea Green. Now, obviously, being from Scotland, she's going to be kind of like that hometown hero, and I fear that we might see a lot of cheering for Piper Niven. Very much like how Rhea Ripley was cheered for in Australia, but the difference was that Nia Jax was kind of the foil, being that person who the fans didn't really want to see her win. The fans want to see Piper win in Scotland, but obviously Bayley will walk away with the victory on this one. Next up, let's talk about Sami Zayn defending his Intercontinental Championship against Chad Gable. Oh man, this is probably the hardest match to predict. While I would love to say that Chad Gable is going to win this easily, you can't say that confidently. Look at the storyline. Look at the fact that he has been berating and putting Otis and Maxine and Tozawa down, that he's been just obliterating the confidence in the character of Alpha Academy. Does that play a role in what's going to happen? I really think it does, one way or the other. Otis obviously could go to hit Sami with something, and Sami gets out of the way, and then Chad Gable takes the brunt of what Otis was trying to do to Sami. But the reason I don't think that's going to happen is because it's already happened. It happened a couple weeks ago when Sami and Chad had their last Intercontinental Championship match. So do we see Otis go after Chad and try to get retribution, and Chad moves out of the way and attacks Sami by accident this time? Which would be a really interesting way to kind of help Chad inadvertently get the IC belt. Now also, we could see Otis straight up turn heel. We could see him turn his back on Maxine and Tozawa and align himself, establish himself as the heavy beside Chad Gable, and definitively give him the belt. The only thing I don't like about this is I'm really longing for a Team Gable development, a Team Gable being established with Brutus and Julius, the Creed brothers, aligning themselves with Chad Gable. And I think the other thing you have to consider is Chad Gable's contract, and we're seeing a lot of this lately in WWE, a lot of contracts coming up to expire really soon. And the question is this going to be a situation where you give somebody the title only for them to leave in a couple weeks and all the work you've done is kind of unraveled? I don't think that's the case. I think that they have Chad Gable locked in. I think that they're going to use the IC title win and subsequent reign as kind of like the cherry on top to really give him a motivation and reason to stay with WWE. Also, I think Chad Gable's a smart guy, and if you look at the overall roster, the talent pool of AEW, there's so many people who aren't doing things over there. And it kind of is a bummer that Ricochet is taking himself out of the equation of WWE, which I have a video coming out talking about my dream opponents in AEW for Ricochet. But I think Ricochet is another great example. He might start off really strong and really hot, but eventually I think he'll just be in the background, and his place on the card will be much lower value than it is currently in WWE. But I think Chad isn't going to do that. I think Chad's going to stay with WWE. We're going to see him finally win his first singles title. So I have Chad Gable to defeat Sami Zayn. I've been saying this for months, but I think we got Chad Gable walking out with the belt. Next up, we have Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill defending their WWE Women's Tag Team Championships against Alba Fire and Isla Dawn and Shayna Baszler and Zoe Stark. Now, this match is kind of a toss-up. I think the way it's structured makes it really easy to say, hey, this is a great opportunity for them to take the tag titles off of Bianca and Jade while still protecting them. They don't have to eat the pinfall. Somebody else can take the pinfall because there's 3 teams involved. But then if you look at this from a human element, it's really somber because Alba Fire's mother passed away last night, as of the recording of this video, after being struck by a car on the street. Before I even created my predictions officially for what I thought was going to happen at Clash at the Castle Scotland, I actually had Alba Fire and Isla Dawn winning the tag team titles for a few reasons. Number one, there's kind of been this overarching story for a long time that the titles are kind of cursed, and Alba Fire and Isla Dawn might have put a curse on them. Also, Alba Fire is from Scotland, so like hometown hero element. But especially with this whole thing that's happened with her mom, this really sad, tragic thing, I think the feel-good story is Alba Fire winning the titles in memory of her mother. So that's what I'm predicting. I'm predicting Alba Fire and Isla Dawn to walk away with the tag team championships. They'll defeat, probably pin Zoe Stark to win them. And that gives Bianca and Jade an opportunity kind of like right off towards Money in the Bank. Alba Fire and Isla Dawn get the tag titles, which is really where those titles belong, is with those two. And we kind of get that, feel-good moment of, man, she's going through one of the most heartbreaking, gut-wrenching experiences of her life. But this is just a way to say, hey, we're here for you, we love you. We want to make this a really meaningful moment for you in light of everything you're going through. So I have Alba Fire and Isla Dawn to win. And Alba, we love you. Our thoughts and prayers are with you, and we just appreciate you, and our thoughts are with your family during this really difficult time. Next up, main event time, we have Damian Priest defending his World Heavyweight Championship against Drew McIntyre. Undoubtedly, this is the feature attraction of the show. Drew comes home to the place where they just call him Drew, and I think it's interesting because he's facing the man who really stripped him of the title 5 minutes into his reign at WrestleMania 40, Night 2, Damian Priest. There's a lot of story here already built in, and on top of that, Damian Priest is having to deal with a lot of issues within Judgment Day, especially involving Dirty Dom and Liv Morgan. While I obviously think there's a lot more story to tell with the World Heavyweight Championship involved within Judgment Day, I don't think it's necessary, and I think the better play is to put the strap on Drew in his home country. It's hard to deny like this sheer presence and the overwhelming energy of Drew McIntyre over these last 6 months. I think another really fun thing that's got incorporated as of last night on Monday Night Raw is that after what happened at the last Clash of the Castle where Drew lost the title opportunity against Roman Reigns thanks to Solo Sikoa, now the Judgment Day is banned from ringside. But is that really going to keep them from trying to interfere? Well, it could. But that might also open up the opportunity for somebody else to interfere, somebody who has some beef with Drew. That's right. I fear that we will see CM Punk try to interfere and cost Drew McIntyre the championship against Damian Priest. Now, I'm not against this kind of interaction between Punk and McIntyre. I would just prefer it to be saved for some post-match shenanigans, not anything that would actually take away from the match itself. Because could you imagine the pop when Drew hits that final definitive Claymore and the ref's hand smacks the canvas for a 3 and we crown Drew McIntyre World Heavyweight Champion in front of his countrymen? Look, this one is the other one that I really think it's just as difficult to predict as Sami versus Chad. I think they're equally hard to predict what's going to happen, who's going to walk away with the championship. But that all being said, I am officially on record going to say Drew McIntyre defeats Damian Priest. He wins back his World Heavyweight Championship, and then we start working towards McIntyre versus Punk, and also McIntyre versus Gunther at SummerSlam. All right, guys, those are my predictions for Clash of the Castle Scotland. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. And make sure you comment down below your predictions. And I will see you guys very soon.